Hi guys, it's Penelope in London, and today I have Michaela with me. We're doing a regular slot on the new moon and the full moons, and today we have a new moon in Aries, and we're going to discuss what's going on out there, because it seems there is a lot going on. So let's have a look. We've got the Michaela. Hi.
Hi everyone.
Okay, we're going to go for it. So we're going to go. I found this beautiful picture and I really love this. I love those horns as well. But it's just such a beautiful animal. Beautiful
No,
eyes as well. So there you go. So the new moon is in 22 degrees of Aries, and actually that's landed on my Venus just about because my Venus is 18, coming up to 19 of Aries. And it's April the 11th and 12th it's been, depending where you are. California, it was 18:30, New York, 21:30 p.m., and the United Kingdom was 2:30 a.m. in the morning when it took place at 22 degrees. And we've got the chart here, which we're going to discuss. But I just thought that I didn't bring up solar fire today. If that's okay, we'll just go with with some information on this chart. We'll come back to this in a moment, but we're going to talk about this. We're going to go forward to the aspects, and we've got the sun conjunct the moon, which always happens on a new moon, and it's opposite when it's a full moon. We've got the sun sextile to Mars. These are the closest aspects to it. And we've also got some help here with Chiron sextile to Saturn, which I think was helpful to us. The Lilith also to Neptune, the node in trining Saturn at the moment, and the node sextile to Mercury, Saturn square Uranus. So we can go through these. And then also this chart we're going to bring up at some point in the future. Do you just want to give a quick word on this before we look at the chart of what's going on with the new moon?
Yeah, as you say, we're not going to go into depth on it.
No.
But this is just to show that how this new moon ties in with the lunar eclipse of the 10th of January 2020, which was actually very close to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that took place on the 12th of January 2020. And they were, the lunar eclipse on the 10th and that on the 12th, they were major markers for the COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, so with this and with the 1801 up here, this is, can you explain that?
That's the UK chart. So that's the United Kingdom chart. And that's from Nick Campion's book referenced.
Okay, that's brilliant.
World horoscopes, and he says that seems a very effective chart for the United Kingdom. So you can see there just briefly,
yeah.
up in the 10th house, if you look up to the 10th, Cancer,
here
you see that lunar eclipse, which is opposite at 20 Cancer, opposite down there in the 4th, 20 degrees Capricorn, the sun.
Yeah.
So that's a lunar eclipse, which is a full moon, but it was an eclipse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So dead on 20 degrees Cancer, which you can see there if you look at the UK chart.
Yeah. In the inner wheel ring.
That the UK chart's moon is actually at 19 degrees Cancer.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's very, very, and and so I did bring that up when we were having a discussion on EA Zoom about what the Saturn Pluto might bring. That was in December of 2019.
Yeah.
So and it was very noticeable that it was going to affect, whatever happened was going to affect the UK very, very deeply, which it has, obviously.
Yeah, it has. I mean, the whole world.
It has the whole world, but UK went through Brexit and COVID, so it's been very, very highlighted for it. And also, as the United Kingdom, it's Brexit and COVID have also brought, the Irish problem back again.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Yeah,
fascinating.
So the United Kingdom really is threatened. I mean, Scotland talks about another referendum. And Ireland's having huge problems back again, and so it really has dug it all up. I mean, it'll be fortunate if he even has a United Kingdom by the end of all of this.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can travel at some
It's
point.
threatening to break it up. Yeah.
Before I look at that new moon, what I do want to bring up here, I don't know if you've ever, with human design, it links in with the gene keys, which is a guy called Richard Rudd, which is brilliant work. And where we're heading, this is the gene key 55 is the gate we're heading into in 2027. Which we might look at on a chart at some point. I would like to do that with you, Michaela.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
But the gate 55, actually, the definition up here that you can see is it's victimization and freedom. So the victimization that we're always free, and the dragonfly is actually resembles the gate 55 in the I Ching. The gate 55 is abundance, and he says here that we can't chase freedom. We can't run out and sell everything and drop our dreams and become a monk or hermit drifting about. We have no chance of dropping our dreams. We have to be so patient, and freedom will come on its own without our doing anything. And we have to live as a human with all of the trappings and trimmings, and from within that our freedom will arise. So I think this is what's going on in many ways, that our freedom will arise.
Sure.
You know, it will arise, but we're in the trappings of this, and then as we go through time, and that, you know, Pluto's actually going we'll look at the moon as well, but Pluto's going retrograde on I think it's the 27th. I can't recall the date.
I think so. I think it is. Yeah, it's at the end of the month anyway, isn't it?
So that's very fascinating to me. But
I mean, yeah, and look at that, it's 27, almost 27 Capricorn, and it's rising in the UK. So, and obviously the 27th Capricorn is it's the return chart of the USA chart too.
Yeah.
The 4th of July.
They're having the USA are having their return. So the Pluto, the Pluto, when it goes retrograde, you know, I think that I was born with Pluto retrograde, so I've noticed that since I've been doing astrology, I do feel a bit more empowered during that time. I don't know, you know, whether that's just my imagination or whether there's a reality in that, but I do feel sort of more at home in the world.
Really, when it's going retrograde?
Yeah, and it will happen for 5 months, and also we've also got coming up the Venus square Saturn in a few weeks as well. Venus, where are we here? Of course,
we've got it exact here, Venus square Pluto exact, pretty much exact, isn't it? 26.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Venus square Pluto as well.
Yeah.
So what was the
that's very, very highlighted. That's probably the strongest aspect in this transit in this particular chart.
It's amazing that each time you look at a chart what we see, but the key words for Aries that what we have is that, you know, Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars rules Aries, and we've got, you know, where we have separation, we have anxiety of separation. There can be anger, rage. It's our desires. It's the baby. It's you know, the baby that wants to grab all the toys and it's mine. And
yes. Well, that's very Pluto Venus. It's about our values, but it's also sort of it's a very powerful aspect. Funnily enough, today obviously they opened up the shops, didn't they, in England, and people went stampeding. They stampeded the shops. Like
I didn't see that.
So on a very superficial level, that Venus square Pluto is like, got to get what I want, you know.
Yeah.
I've got to get what I want, and I've got to feed my, you know, I've got to feed my desires.
Or addiction or desire
which is me, you know, Aries and Pluto, you know, so Venus, Pluto, I've got to get what I want and I've got to get it now. And they are. So they, but it's sort of asking for trouble though, with a new moon there at 22 Aries, because all those planets, you know, the faster moving ones, Chiron is slower, obviously, and that's stellium in Aries. But the faster moving ones, Mercury, Sun, Moon, not Aries, or Aries obviously is very slow moving in 20.
Venus, the Moon,
but then Venus. So all those other ones, Mercury, Sun, and Moon, are going to all one by one. They're going to square that Pluto. So it's like a queue ready to square. And
oh my gosh,
and as we just said on the UK,
boom, boom, boom.
particularly,
got
yeah,
it.
exactly. So there's going to be a price paid for that stampede of, got to get what I want and got
I
to get it
believe
now.
so. And what's very interesting, it's like, on a soul level, are we really understanding the lessons that we've got to
Yeah,
learn right now? And
exactly. It's
you
like the
know,
values is just, we
I
feeling
want,
deprived, but I've got to get it.
yeah.
And yeah,
And
and
I've
not,
actually gone
but
the other
not taking
way,
it through, whereas the real way to
wholeness.
to wholeness, is, and the Pluto, which
Yeah.
is the soul and its transformation. So is to actually examine your values and examine what your desires are and why your desires are and what your values are. So it's a very, very deep aspect,
It's
that.
a very deep for me. I mean, I've,
But you see, it's being treated superficially and without due care. And so
and
it's
diligence.
it's playing with fire, because there aren't true values there. They're just, we've got to get what we want, and we've got to get all the pleasure we can and all the gratification
And it's
we can.
illusionary.
And it's illusionary. Yeah, exactly. And that's, as you're quite right there. And that's, that Mars, again, Mars is squaring Neptune, isn't it? So that is illusionary.
Yeah.
So you've got Mars there in Gemini, 23 Gemini,
Yeah.
square to Neptune in Pisces.
Yeah.
And that's the illusion. It's like, and obviously that rules the new moon, because it's Mars rules Aries, and
Absolutely.
and so it is the it is the lower octave of Pluto as well, isn't
Well, it
it?
is. It's like the libido but the
Yeah,
lower octave of that
yeah,
of the libido rather than of the psyche. And
exactly. So it's like gotta get, but it is illusionary.
yeah,
So it's, unfortunately that bubble's gonna burst.
because the Aries, not, and people, have a huge misunderstanding of the word narcissism, but Aries, is in part self-interest. It's the warrior, it's the pioneer,
Yeah,
it's the destroyer. It can be paranoia, narcissism, primal. It can be, it's initiation, it's initiative. So these, superhuman, these things can be used many ways. It's special destiny. Also, it's the war, loner, and it can be violence, sexual instinct, impatience and anger at limitations, and intolerance and weakness and instinct. And the moon, it can be, with the moon in Aries, the feeling of uncertainty can make us want to solve our problems faster than is natural. This is very standard. Yeah.
Instantly, yes.
And it's not rushing as if we're on a deadline, trying to really, we need to slow down and decide, what we want, and, proceed at a comfortable pace instead of, and even though that seems boring, sometimes it's necessary to, to evolve into, slowing down. And because also when we have spurts of energy, then we, when we use up all that energy, there is, we haven't got any spare energy.
Sure.
But it's also where, I think where we can have temper, with this as well.
Oh,
so
yeah, right.
frustration.
It's anger too. It's frustration, and it's just, so it's like, it's like, people have just been let out of the pen and they're just rushing now.
And that to me shows consciousness or a lack thereof. And that's not a judgment, but, the whole, I was thinking earlier, what is the word spirituality? I was speaking to somebody about this earlier, and I thought, well, really, when we take away the religious dogma and even that I'm spiritual, I don't particularly say that about myself, but I hear people say that they are, and I can't quite figure out what they're trying to tell me when they do say I'm really spiritual, they're spiritual. For me, what it would be is that we would have empathy, and I'm not talking about being an empath. I don't particularly like that terminology, because I can see that it can be as grandiose as saying, well, I'm really pure and I'm this and I'm that. We've got a mix of things in us. We're not one way.
Exactly.
Being whole, there's the devil and God all at play within us.
Yeah, definitely.
So it can also,
but I mean, the thing is to remember about this then, as the chart you showed, which is going back to the sort of the root of this period, which is the Saturn Pluto conjunction and the lunar eclipse that sort of
highlights. Back to that
quickly, if you want.
Just, and was it forward or back? Let's see. I think it was forward. There you go. Forward.
Yeah.
There you go.
So going back to that, that's the root of this, because that new moon at 22 there at Aries, in the 7th house of that chart,
Yeah, here.
That's exactly squaring the Saturn-Pluto
Look
conjunction.
where she's landed there.
Yeah,
On Aries.
on Aries as well. I know, exactly. So if you look down at in the 4th house to Saturn-Pluto, exactly conjunct at 22 Capricorn, then you can see that this new moon is squaring it. So
Saturn Pluto in the 2nd wheel.
yeah. I mean, you'll get that. Say if you take every 3 months, you'll get the phases.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Sign. You'll get that.
Oh,
So if
I
you look 3
see.
months, so yeah, exactly. So it's like you take the lunar eclipse there, and 3 months later, you'll get another a cardinal sign. You'll get a development, and then you'll get another moon phase in the next cardinal sign. And certain months, like 6 months, is relevant, and then 9 months is relevant. And this is 15 months since that original seeding event of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So
Yeah.
15 months is a very relevant moon phase. And it is showing the next chapter, really. So we're going into the next chapter now, and that's showing that new moon in Aries. But that is friction. So people are acting like it's over, particularly in England.
I see that.
Looking at this chart involving the UK chart, but it's nowhere near over.
I don't think it is. And
that's a chapter of development. And as you said, it's evolutionary. And so that whole Saturn-Pluto conjunction is an evolutionary conjunction. It's an aspect of evolution. So as you were saying, it's not a superficial thing.
Yeah.
It's very deep. So we are being, it's like alchemy. We are being, boiled down. Stewed, yes. Our own juices, yeah.
Yeah.
But so to actually now act like, oh, that was all over, and not get what it meant, or not having evolved.
That really bothers me.
Yeah. So it's like
me.
Nothing's been learned there. Let's just go back to our pleasures, get our holidays, get our shopping, get our drinks. It's all, as you were saying, it's illusionary, and it's very dangerous. And unfortunately, we're just going into the next phase of it now. And we are going to have a rude awakening from that. I mean, hardly anyone was wearing a mask on those shopping trips. I mean, it's ugh.
Well, I'm seeing it, around me, and I'm looking after myself, and it's not with me. It's not fear. It's, I think that I've been very blessed to,
it's respecting the boundary. That this is, you respect what's happening.
I do, yeah.
The virus is real, and it is necessary.
They're talking about variants in South London. They're talking about variants, and they're pushing out testing because there's part of London that's where variants have come up.
I just saw that, and the South African variant actually is at now 44 people they've found already. And since this is highly contagious, more contagious than the other variants, and it's more deadly, and then you've got, so this is just the first one that's really getting a hold.
And I know, it's like looking at what I'm seeing and data, a third wave possible. I mean,
yeah, oh, definitely.
And we know we can't say that for definite, but when we look at astrology, we can see.
This isn't over. This is just another chapter. So, it just shows so many people haven't got the deeper values.
Message. Yeah.
They haven't. There's people still in hospital, and there's, people dying all over the world and in terrible distress, and they're worrying about their shopping.
Well, I know, I saw in Brazil, like the 4,000 hit in one day, this is. And this is not to scare people. It's just that what are we really, what are we really communicating to each other? I will say, which is quite interesting, looking at the gene keys again. So it's, if you don't know what that is, Michaela, it's actually human design based, but it's just another sort of slide on. I'm not, Richard Rudd is a brilliant writer, so I'm not missing gene keys very, linking them with the I Ching. And what he actually said with the gene key, with the 3, it is Aries, and what we have, it's seen through things with Aries, like the eyes of a child. So, through the eyes of a child, and then at the lower octave, which would be, he would, you know, we would have chaos, then we would have innovation, and we would have innocence. So the return to innocence, but also, you know, not, you know, the innocence in us, you know, it's always there, that innocence. And that I think that we, you know, we can also be corrupt with our, you know, with the way we are, like treating each other, not, you know, just not being, you know, going for the harmony of really just, you know, that
Well,
thing I think,
we don't give enough thought,
yeah,
and so we have, I mean, evolution, in an evolutionary way, this is what we do. This is what Jung was saying. We bring, we materialize what we need to cause our evolution, to become conscious.
yeah,
So we will unconsciously materialize what we need. And that is what it seems we've done with the virus. We've actually materialized something that is absolutely real, but we ourselves with our unconscious have materialized it with our wrong thinking, because we needed it to change that wrong thinking.
absolutely. I would say, I did, you know, I do know this because I've been looking at the work of Jung, as so have you. And there is a meme that floats around social media, and basically it says that Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it
Yeah.
will direct your life and you will call it fate. But the
Yeah.
actual quote, from what I can see in my own research, unless you come up with something else, Michaela, on this, but in Ion, is that the way I would pronounce that book?
Yes. Yeah.
The end of paragraph of 126 of Ion, which is volume 9 of his collected works. He says the psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. And also what you said to me with regard to, you know, painful events in our lives, it's something in us, which I did save when you said that to me. I saved it and I use it in my workshops with, you know, I bring that up, that the reality that, you know, the unconscious aspects of us are being projected out into the world, into our relationships. And, you know, the idea of abandonment, as we know, I've had some records that I came across from my childhood, and that I've needed to access. And, you know, I could see that, you know, an abandonment at a very young age that unconsciousness is then projected into my intimate relationships. And it's very painful to see how the unconscious is really driving us as adults.
Sure, but on the other hand, as we were just saying, the unconscious will only do that because it needs you to heal, and it needs you to recognize what is the root. You know, it needs you to go way back to actually find the root of
so we
cause,
can become whole.
and to become whole, and to become conscious. So that's the actual impetus.
The ultimate, yeah, that's
exactly. That's the whole cause of that's why we cause our problems, because our unconscious needs us to get realization, to get consciousness.
Yes, so, you know, the idea that you know, I think he did say, I can't recall the absolute same, where, you know, two people meeting, whatever, it's like it's a chemical, you know, the what's results, what out of that can be such growth. You know, so
if there is, yes, but only if there is enough thought goes into it, and if it is actually, if the perspective is widened.
And communication, it seems, you know, the lack of communication. And what's fascinating with that node moving through for another, I think till the end of next year, that node is moving through Gemini. You know, it's going to be 1 degree. I think I looked, and it's really, we've still, you know, got some time with that. And I think that when we see that, you know, that our communication, and that we don't want to be too superficial within our communications either, we need to get to, this is what I was thinking, what I've noticed with the spirituality, which I missed out, was that ultimately what that means for me is that we have a level of empathy, that we have a level of decency, and that we think of more than just ourselves, and that that we're, you know, that we keep working on ourselves to grow beyond, you know, just the self. Because as Jung's speaking with individuation, a lot of people can misread what that is, of like, you know, running off and being on your own and being individuated, but actually it's actually becoming whole. It comes back to becoming whole.
Yeah, and able to reflect on ourselves and our thoughts, even to realize that our thoughts come from our unconscious, but they you know, can come from a negative place as well as a positive place.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of our thoughts and actually question them instead of just taking them as writ. You know, this is my thoughts and this is what I want, and then act our desires. And this is what this chart is saying, really. Instead of acting on a desires, to actually consider what our desires are.
Because it's a fantasy.
Because it's a fantasy, it's an illusion. But that Jupiter is trine 25 Aquarius. It's trined by Mars. So Mars is going into trine with that with Jupiter in air. So air is about thought, it's about perspective, and Jupiter is the planet of perspective. So it is about widening the perspective there. So although Mars is squaring Neptune, which shows the illusion, it's asking for a wider perspective, because that's the counteraction to delusion, is to actually widen the perspective and see the whole picture, to see the reflection.
Absolutely. So the Mars trine Jupiter, like the standard would be, you know, it can give us the energy and the activity, which is what Jung would say. I always think of the libido, but libido not in to do with the sexual aspect, but the mind, the psyche, psyche.
And Jupiter in Aquarius too. I mean, that comes from that seeding of its conjunction with Saturn in Aquarius, and at 0 degrees as it did in the winter solstice, 21st of December in 2020. It met very famously with Saturn in that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius, really powerful on the solstice. And that seeded the Aquarian urge to actually think not just for the self, which is the Aries, which is the community, which is Aquarius, which is saying you don't think of yourself, it's the community. It is, you know, you are important in the community, but it's service to the community. So you don't serve your community by just thinking, I want to get more than everyone else and I want to get it now. And
you know, I was hoping somewhat that the glamour of it, of all of this, and you know, the death of glamour, and I don't mean the death of, you know, it's great to, you know, the death of narcissism. I mean, it would just be nice to see that, you know, die.
But yeah,
I would say, and you know, the we've got
at least the recognition of it. That's what we need. We need because
then we call ourselves out. Then we call
narcissism in all of us.
Yeah, we've all got it. So it's then we call ourselves out and we say, hey, or
we need to call ourselves out. We need to widen our perspective so we see it. We notice our behavior and our thoughts, and it's
integrating it, isn't it? It's not you would not
bring ourselves in.
Yeah, it's integrating. It's not getting rid of it. It's integrating.
No, exactly. You can't get rid of it, and you don't. You know, and it's even not a good thing to get rid of the ego.
Well, it would be like we can't get rid of the South Node, as we well know. It's integration.
We can't, but it is integrating it and balancing.
You know, we've got here as well that Aries, I think she's 560 years around the chart, and so when Pluto's going to go back, you know, I think it's 24 actually, because it's trying in my, it's trying in my Mars. I'm very lucky. I'm being trined out by Pluto, so I'm in Pluto heaven for a few years of my life.
Getting a good deal from Pluto.
I'm getting Pluto's. Thankfully, it's gifted me after many years of really giving me my money's worth, so to speak. So
you're ready.
So but you know, this, so that she is the goddess of discord, and I think that, you know, this speaks quite loudly in the idea, you know the story of more than I do, of that she had the apple, was it Aries?
The golden apple of discord, it's to do with the Trojan Wars, isn't it? The myth. But, she was ignored. She was left out of the party, so to speak, and so she decided to get her revenge by throwing the golden apple in.
Well, I think maybe that's what Pluto's doing. Pluto's saying, you know, you're not taking any notice of me, so I'm gonna you know, they're dancing together, aren't they? This is
Yeah,
the
definitely. So
Pluto's dancing with Aries. So, you know,
exactly. So people are playing with fire if they take this superficially, because it's not superficial, and
no, and I think, you know,
it's requiring everyone to go into the depths, to dive down deep and into their own unconscious and their motivations and everything, because that's, you know, as the individuals does it, so does the world do it, and we all need to do that. We need to question how we've lived and how we've thought and acted, and until we do that, we're going to get, this isn't going to go away. We're going to get one disruption after another, because it's begun, and
absolutely.
the evolutionary process isn't going to just quit. You know, it's not going to say, okay, go and do your shopping now.
I mean, my throw on doing evolutionary astrology and my own trauma work through over the years is that, you know, and where I'm at in my own evolutionary state is that for me, you know, the whole point of COVID and the masks in part has been to help us to evolve our own masks, and, you know, to the masks that we've been wearing, you know, the disconnection.
Disconnection. Yeah, exactly. The boundaries we've had between each other, the unseen boundaries.
Yeah.
And now it's materialized as real boundaries between each other, which are, exactly.
It's fascinating.
It is.
That was really good. I don't think we can leave it there for today. I've enjoyed that, and we'll be back with the full moon, won't we?
Yeah. Oh yes.
We keep going round.
Oh yeah.
And we've got other work to do. We'll be putting out some good content on, you know, understanding the psyche and a bit of narcissism, you know, with a bit of narcissism not thrown in, by the way, but we'll be talking about that.
Oh yes.
And I really appreciate it. That was really lovely today. So I thank you.
Thanks a lot,
and we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there and be back soon. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.